strong.
The first that comes to mind is setting really low expectations. And I'll tell you,
not what I was expecting
not,
to say.
Well, not what a lot of people expect. And when I spoke to, say, Paulo Coelho, who's sold 100 million plus copies, The Alchemist, etc., you talk to Rick Rubin. So let me give his example first. When he has a musician who's stuck, great musician, but they've developed performance anxiety about songwriting for whatever reason, he will say, do you think you could get me one sentence or maybe 2 words that you like by tomorrow? That's it, 2 words. Can you do that for me? And he gives them a micro assignment. Best writing advice that I probably ever received, and I've received a lot of good writing advice, but I can get myself really wound up because I expect perfection to flow from my fingertips like magic, and that never happens. So then I beat the hell out of myself, and that makes me less likely to put pen to paper in the first place. I'll procrastinate, which is why if you write 2 crappy pages per day, you've won the day. That's a successful writing day. And that does a few things. It helps you to maintain enthusiasm because you're constantly winning. And of course, on many days, you'll write more than 2. You'll get to 2, then you go to 5 or to 10. But if you're on an off day, you write 2 crappy pages, even if you never use it, it's a successful day. And that, I think, for longer term projects and extended creativity is really important. But the story that this writer told me with that tip, he said, okay, this is where this comes from. Did you know that IBM, when it was the 800-pound gorilla, it was an undefeatable sales force? Do you know what one of their rules was? He's like, no. He says, well, what do you think their quotas were? And I was like, well, I'm sure their quotas were really high because they wanted to motivate their guys to get after it. And he goes, no, their quotas were the lowest in the industry.
Wow.
And the rationale was we don't want our salespeople to be intimidated to pick up the phone. We want them to feel like they're going to pass their quota quickly, which they did, and then they shot well past it and clobbered the competition. So the counterintuitive pairing of low expectations leading to higher performance is really odd, right?
Well, so let's ask the obvious question then.
Yeah.
So, as somebody who's had a lot of employees at the at the height I had, over 1,000 employees, that feels dangerous.
Yeah.
And it feels dangerous, and I think I have my own answer, but it feels dangerous because some people, especially when an organization gets that big, they're looking for a place to hide, and you give it to them.
Yeah. So I think that the winning combination is selectively low quotas on a daily basis with high expectations for metrics on, say, a quarterly or annual basis. So you're tracking the numbers, you want them to hit home runs, but it doesn't have to be one at bat. I think it's also very context and role specific. But if we're talking about creativity in particular, right? So not necessarily work output, the approach, there are a number of prolific writers who have said, Neil Strauss said this, there's no such thing as writer's block, which drives me crazy. Because I'm like, come on, like, you might be a mutant like X-Men of writing, but for the normal humans, come on, like, give me a break. And he goes, no, hear me out. Number one, he is a trained journalist, and journalists tend to have writing block beaten out of them because their boss is like, oh, you can't find the right prose for your 500-word article? Oh, get it in by 5 o'clock, asshole. And they're just like, oh, wait, this isn't school? And they're like, yeah, deadline. That's your incentive. Writer's block my ass. And he's like, oh, okay. But he said, and what they learn is, he said, there's no such thing as writer's block. He said, what that is performance anxiety that you've imposed on yourself because your expectations are too high. And he's like, just lower your standards. Lower your standards till you get started.